Hey dorks, just a quick message reminding you to head over to twitch.tv/mindgappodcast and give us a follow. We live stream when we record our new podcast episodes, and we're live streaming video game sessions on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We're playing super rad stuff like Among Us, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, Jackbox games, and Tabletop Simulator. Come hang out and play along with us. That's twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. Mind Gap Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Mind Gap Podcast. I'm Doug.
I'm Justin.
And joining us, returning once again to the podcast, is our Marvel and comic book expert, coming all the way from comicbook.com. Please welcome back, Jamie Jirak. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be back. I like that we did a less of a gap between my second and third time on than the first and second.
Without a doubt, we are so thrilled to have you back, and we're going to get this out of the way now for the listeners. This episode's all about WandaVision. So if you haven't watched it, the season finale isn't out yet. That's why we're doing this, because we're going to make predictions. But if you haven't watched it, spoilers are abound. So you've been warned. You've been warned. So
You've been warned.
Yeah. So we're gonna we brought Jamie back on because she is, to say that she loves WandaVision is an understatement. So if you follow her on Twitter, which you should, at Jamie Cinematics, you see all the cool stuff that she's got. She's definitely, Jamie posts something, I'm like, I like this, because she's in it. She's into the stuff. She's got cool takes, hot takes. You should check them out. So, and she's also, go ahead, Justin.
I was gonna say, if you're watching on Twitch right now, you're seeing all of this. But if you're listening to the podcast, pop over to YouTube and you can check out the recording, the video recording that we posted up there. She's got Elizabeth Olsen in the back. She's got her WandaVision shirt on. She's got her coffee mug. It is WandaVision up and down.
That's right. All day, every day.
I have now have WandaVision shirts because people, like, I bought some, but it was my birthday recently, so people just kept sending me stuff. But this has not been debuted yet, so this sweater is just for you guys. The first time I'm showing.
I also love the shirt that I saw on that you posted, that was like the Agatha All Along shirt that you had, which was phenomenal. I was like, yes, this is a wonderful photo.
That's from Etsy. If you want some good WandaVision stuff, check Etsy. And like, you're supporting a lot of like small businesses and stuff, which is nice. So I definitely recommend just searching WandaVision on Etsy if you want some cool stuff to buy.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, before we get into it, let's get through a little bit of housekeeping. First things first, if you don't already, please be sure to check us out on Spotify. Just head on over, search for us there. We are at other places like Apple Podcasts, Google Play, other things.
Verbal.
I mean, we keep getting notifications. It's like, hey, claim your podcast space on this website. It's like, okay, I guess. Okay. I mean, we had a big upshoot in India for a while, so thank you all. That was cool.
Thank you, India.
Yeah, right on. So be sure to follow us on Spotify and other places. Also, come check out our Discord server. Come join the community, the Mind Gap community. It's a silly community. We talk about a lot of nerd stuff, post a lot of ridiculous memes. We set up gaming sessions, D&D stuff. So come check us out. If you want to do that, head over to twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. At the bottom of our little bio, you'll see a little Discord button. Just click that. They'll bring you right over to the server. You can play it with us. We play a lot of Overwatch. We're playing Left 4 Dead 2, all sorts of stuff. So come hang out with us there. It's great. It's awesome. Next, check us out for merch on Redbubble, because Redbubble's the best. And Teespring can eat a giant bag of dicks. But Redbubble's awesome. Head over to redbubble.com. Just search for Mind Gap. We've got a whole bunch of cool stuff over there. Get something cool. Support the podcast. We'll love you. And also, every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Central Time, I do a video game stream. Last weekend, I did Outer Wilds, which was a gift that was given to me by my good friend Eric of the D&D, the fantasy board game sessions. You may know him, and his one request was, don't read anything about it and don't play it before you stream. I honored that request, and I was met with some horrific situations that happened. I posted a few clips, but one of them, I was just in the middle of reading something. I was just going through a journal, and in the distance, the sun exploded, and I died unexpectedly. And it was just like, what the fuck is this game? But very interesting, very fun. Come check us out Saturday nights, twitch.tv/MindGapPodcast. We'd love to have you there and hang out. And one last thing, I want to give a special shout out. A special shout out to a fan of the podcast, a friend of the Discord, Mr. Wolfslore. I want to say thank you, my friend. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for always being positive. Thank you for always checking in. You're a wonderful human, and we appreciate you. We're glad that you're part of our world. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you for being a part of Mind Gap Podcast. So
you might say thank you for being a friend. Travel up and down the road again.
Listen,
no, out on you.
Listen,
that's fair.
I didn't really go to church growing up. I may be a funny Christian, but I don't remember that Bible verse. Okay, so keep it to yourself. Fair. What are you taking a picture of?
I'm. Don't worry about it.
Today's episode of WandaVision did have a slight Golden Girls Easter egg.
Thank you. See, Doug, I'm cultured.
Listen, I couldn't read that book. All right, I don't know what I'm saying. I got nothing. My bits failed. It died. It's all good. I was like, I was gonna double down. I was gonna double down on the Bible bit, but I'm like, it's not going anywhere. So anyway, so let's now turn our attention to Jamie. Jamie, first of all, how you been? What have you been up to since the last time you were here?
Wow. Well, the last time I was here, I was living in my aunt's basement in New Jersey, and I've moved on up in the world. I am now living in LA. I finally have all my stuff back. LA is great, I think. I don't know. I never leave my bedroom. I don't know if you knew, but there's a pandemic going on. It's so I'm happy to be here, but it sucks because I have so many friends here that I haven't seen yet, and but it seems like we're light at the end of the tunneling it. Other than that, literally my whole life is WandaVision. There's nothing else in my life to talk about except for this television program, and that's I don't mind.
So how sad are you going to be after Thursday at midnight or Friday at midnight? I don't know how that works.
Certainly going to be sad. It softens the blow that we're getting Falcon and the Winter Soldier pretty immediately.
That's also very true.
And even though WandaVision was truly made for me, and I can get into that why later, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's not quite this is a Jamie Jirak program, but Captain America Winter Soldier is my favorite Marvel movie. So I think because of that, I'm gonna love it because it's that same kind of style.
Yeah.
But one nice thing was I have a tattoo rule. And you can't get a TV show tattoo until the show is over. But I don't really have to wait because WandaVision's already going to be over. So I can't wait by the end of this year, I will have a one.
Oh my gosh. We'll have to have you back on to reveal it because I can't wait to see. You got so many cool tattoos anyway. You've got a Death Star or some shit on you, don't you? Or what do you have?
No, I have Bespin.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I do have 4 Star Wars tattoos.
Yes.
But no Death Star.
What's your favorite TV show tattoo that you have?
TV show specifically?
Yes.
Well, I have 2 that I'm torn between, so I'm going to say them both. I've got a giant BB Newirth from Cheers. It's really big. It's really ridiculous. And I met her, and she was so nice about it. But over the summer, when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ended, I got an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. tattoo to commemorate. Okay. And I really like the way that one turned out.
Nice.
So those are my 2 favorite TV tattoos. But I have 21 tattoos, and all but 2 of them are movie or TV related.
That's amazing.
That's the theme.
I love it. By the way, Jared, our super fan from Australia, said, "Don't be sad, Jamie. Once WandaVision ends, you can just rewatch Superman Returns to tide you over." There's your one, Jared. Hope it was worth it.
Buddy. One more. And you were banned.
Does he remember that I've never seen it, so it wouldn't be a rewatch as much as a first watch.
There you go. Jared also says he's currently watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and he, as he's hands up, super pumped. I know that's one of your favorite shows.
Yes, it is. And I told you guys earlier, but now I'll tell the people watching, listening. This I have a thing behind me here that's an actual set piece from the 4th season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. If you watch season 4, you can see it in the background in the Hydra Triskelion, and now it lives in my podcast background.
That's amazing. That's a wonderful thing to have as your background. That's so cool. I love it. So let's talk about WandaVision. I have to say, I think when I was watching this, when I watched first episode of WandaVision, I thought of you, Jamie, because when you said that this show was made for you, I was like, without a doubt, this is made for Jamie. And as I watched each episode, I was like, man, Jamie has got to be loving this right now. Like, it's just such a love letter to sitcoms throughout the decades. And, you know, I haven't followed TV as much growing up. Like, Jill would always reference shows from the 80s and 90s, and I was like, I never watched that. She's like, what the hell were you doing? I was like, I don't know, but I was like, I didn't watch the Wonder Years. I didn't watch Who's the Boss, Charles in Charge. I mean, oddly enough, I would watch with my mom. I'd watch TV Land, and I'd watch a little bit of I Dream of Jeannie, Mr. Ed, Green Acres, stuff like that. So some of these earlier ones, I was very much like, oh yeah, I remember, you know, I kind of get this vibe. But as I moved along, like, I wasn't as attached to it because I'm not as much of a TV watcher. But I was like, I'm sure Jamie is just absolutely just loving this. What was your reaction as you were going through those first few episodes?
There are so many factors about why it's like the Jamie Jirak show. I mean, first of all, yes, Scarlet Witch is my favorite Marvel character. Elizabeth Olsen is my favorite actress. So like that's enough right there. But of all the MCU characters that have ever existed, the one I relate to the most is Darcy Lewis. So the fact that they brought her back for this was like another point in the Jamie column. I'm obsessed with Kathryn Hahn, because who wouldn't be? So once they announced her in the cast, I'm like, are you friggin' kidding me with this? Are you serious? And then they keep sprinkling in the fact that like X-Men, the X-Men movie was my first introduction to Marvel. And so I love the X-Men movies. And the fact that we got Evan Peters instead of Aaron Taylor Johnson, that was for Jamie move. It's just one after another. It's insane. But sitcoms especially, I'm doing another podcast that I'll plug right now. It's called Hollywood Already Did It. And we go through WandaVision just from a sitcom perspective. We don't talk about Marvel stuff or theories. It's just sitcom history. And I grew up on television like that. I always say I'm a Brady Bunch scholar. The nonsense I know about the Brady Bunch could fill a lot of books. And the fact that like episode 3, the whole house looked like that. She had the Kitty Carryall doll, or Vision did, and then she watched the Kitty Carryall doll. This latest episode, watching her watch the episodes was really cool to connect it all together. But yeah, it's the sitcom history. It's rich, and it's been interesting to see what they picked. I had a lot of theories about which shows they would do, and I was wrong most of them.
I felt the same though, because I was wondering too, like how I was counting the episodes and the decades, and I'm like, if they're just doing the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, I'm like, they're gonna run out of decades. So I couldn't figure out where they were going to go with it and how they've specifically tied in the sitcoms from decades for what reason, and then also offset that with stuff from like the real world. I thought it was just brilliant, the choices they made in that regard.
Yeah, I'm still disappointed they kind of skipped the 90s. I mean, we got sprinkles of the 90s in there, but especially since like we thought it was going to be the Halloween episode, and 90s sitcoms reigned when it came to the Halloween. So that was like my only real disappointment, is we got a little sprinkle, Full House, a couple other things, but for the most part, we didn't get any 90s shows.
So, but did you not think that did you think that the Halloween episode was kind of like, instead of being one specific show, they kind of took like an amalgamation of all the Halloween episodes of a 90s sitcom? Or was it not sitcom-y enough and dealt too much with the real world?
Neither. I think that the Halloween episode was 100% pure Malcolm in the Middle, and that started in the year 2000. I mean, there were
Interesting.
It's funny. I just associate that with the 90s.
I did too.
No, it started in 2000. So it's like, and that's why like it feels a little 90s-esque. And then in the marquee, they have The Parent Trap, which came out in 1998, but they also had The Incredibles, which came out in 2004. So they were definitely like blending stuff. But I think that those two movie choices had more to do with the themes of those specific movies than the years that they came out.
That is wild because I was a junior in high school when Malcolm in the Middle came out, but I would have sworn that came out when I was like in junior high, and that I was catching it here and there. Wow, yeah, that came out way later than I thought.
Yeah.
Right? It's interesting because it's the same thing where the 50s episode was mostly Dick Van Dyke, but Dick Van Dyke started in the 60s. So it's like there's each one has had crossings, but I think that the decade that was most left out was the 90s.
I love this. Slotty says, this is like reading all the articles about WandaVision my newsfeed keeps trying to get me to read, but only 1,000 times better.
To be honest, I probably wrote like half those articles.
Well, it's funny because when this initially, well, first of all, leading up to this, I was so curious about WandaVision because it seemed so different from anything else. And Marvel, for me, has earned a reputation to a point where I'm like, hey, look, I'll take a chance. Like, they haven't really messed up anything to this point. And I was like, I appreciate that they're like, let's see what we can do. And just watching the trailer, I'm like, God, this is weird. And then, honestly, watching the first 2 episodes, I was kind of underwhelmed. But I was also told myself, I'm not going to judge it based on these first 2 episodes. I want to judge the series or the season as a whole, because I felt like watching an old school sitcom but the thing that always was great was there was those defining moments to me that were very sinister that immediately like it was like it, even for a few seconds, like the first episode where the guy's choking and she's like, Vision, help him, or the second episode when the guy comes out of the sewer and she's like, no, and I'm just like, whoa, okay, something's happening here and the mystery is there. I was just hoping it wasn't going to be like a Lost situation where we're going to have a bunch of mysteries and are we going to solve them? Are we really going to find out the smoke monster is this ridiculous thing and there's polar bears but we don't know how they got there sort of situation. But again, I was like, I have faith that this will happen. And then by episode 3, you start, in episode 4 where it's basically kind of recaps everything. I was like, I really enjoyed what they've done, how they started heavy sitcom and then have slowly transitioned to what's really happening. And I think it's been, and also the way they break it up with those commercials too. Like those commercials are the goddamn best. Like they just, you're incredible. Like I remember the first one they had, like with the toaster. I was like, I don't really know. I didn't really get it. But when they did the watch, and I was like, Strucker. I was like, I know that name. And then it shows the Hydra symbol. I'm like, strange. I wonder what that has to do. And then I started like thinking, oh, these are all things that happen to one. I was like, I'm figuring it out, kinda. But I don't know. I think I was underwhelmed. I've seen some reactions online where people are like, I don't get why people like this show. And I'm like, dude, just power through at this point. We're at episode 8. Like, just go ahead.
It's really bizarre to me that people are being very impatient with this show and just wanting to get to the big thing. And I think that it's one, I mean, it's television, and I think that people have already forgotten what television is.
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm not anti the binge model. There are certain shows that I think should be dumped all at once, but there are certain shows that it's an experience and you want to soak it in and you want to do that. And I think people are forgetting that like this is what TV is, and it's not only a great Marvel project. It's not. There's so many layers, but if nothing else, it is an homage to television and what TV used to be. And the fact that you get a little like, yeah, the first 2-3 episodes are just silly, sitcom-y, and oh God, do I love it. I could watch, I mean, I love it when I love both extremes. It's so great. And you brought up the dinner scene, so I want to drop a little fun fact. I interviewed Deborah Jo Rupp, otherwise known as Kitty Foreman, our favorite TV mom. My favorite TV mom, and I told her that. But she said that filming that dinner scene was like one of the most fun she's ever had.
Really?
Anything. And most of that episode was done in front of a live studio audience, except that moment. So like the audience couldn't really tell what was going on. They were just like watching from afar this bizarre thing. But that's another cool thing that those first couple were like in front of a live studio audience. They really went for it. And I think that's really neat.
So why did she say that was so much fun? Like, if you don't mind elaborating a little bit more on that.
She didn't like really go into detail about it, but you could tell she really loved the 50s, getting dressed 50s. She said she always hated dressing in 70s clothes. She said she looks terrible in the 70s, so she thought she looked great in the 50s. And I also asked her if it was just because I was kind of disappointed she wasn't in the 70s episode because we associate her with that decade. And she was like, no, it's for the best. I think it would have taken people out of it to see me in the 70s in that episode. I would have made the same decision if I was the director. And I was like, oh, she's right. She's totally right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's the same thing. It's why they didn't put Kat Dennings in her Two Broke Girls thing. Like people wanted that, and I'm like, that we can only have so many cuts. Like the Kick-Ass reference, that was good.
That was very interesting. I was like, they're kind of all over the place. I thought that was pretty interesting. I was.
Wait a second. What reference was that? I might have missed that one.
To the movie Kick-Ass.
In the Halloween, they just the kids say like kick ass, and then Wanda goes kick ass, and it's very obviously like they're referencing the fact that Evan Peters and Aaron Taylor Johnson were both in that movie.
Yeah,
got it. Okay,
it's kind of like how people wanted Robert Downey Jr. to say, no shit, Sherlock, to right. Doctor Strange, in one of those movies.
I almost quit Marvel when that didn't happen. I was this close to walking away.
I've liked the pacing of it, and I've liked the approach to it. And Justin, you've obviously you're a big TV guy too. What have you thought about the show so far?
I really, really enjoyed how terrifyingly closely they were able to mirror the writing, the set design, the performances, the jokes, like everything about those first two episodes was scary accurate. It was amazing. My wife jumped in, I think episode 3 or 4, or I had gotten to episode 3 or 4. And that's when she was like, all right, let me jump in. So we went back and rewatched, and she had asked me before she jumped in, she's like, what do you think of it? And I had only gotten through at that point, I think the first 2 episodes. And I said, it's going to be fine. Like, cause like I remember talking to Doug early going, you're going to have trouble because you've got to get through the first 2 episodes, which are basically just carbon copies of old TV sitcoms that you won't like. And I just know where your interests lie, and it's not in the Dick Van Dyke Show, unfortunately, because it's, to me, the Dick Van Dyke Show is one of the best sitcoms ever written. It's in the top 5 for sure.
Did you know that Dick Van Dyke met with the director as a consultant?
No shit.
And they had lunch with Dick Van Dyke and like talked to him about the show and explained it to him, and he the man's in his 90s. They really had to explain it to him.
There's a robot.
I really thought like when Wanda in the latest episode, when they pulled out that Dick Van Dyke DVD set, I really thought that we were going to get a Dick Van Dyke cameo, knowing that he met with him. Yeah. I really thought it was coming. And so,
I mean,
who knows?
Technically, we did get a Dick Van Dyke cameo, which is via DVD old school form. Yeah. But my wife asked, she's like, how is it? And I knew at that point, I was like, it's going to be fine. Like, they're gonna, again, like Doug said, Marvel has earned, unlike DC, Marvel has earned this trust. And you just know when they put something out, look, they're going to get to the good shit. Just let them build what they need to build to get to the thing that's going to fucking tear your mind apart.
Yeah.
And it's going to be good.
Even though just some of us would say that those early episodes are also the good shit. I understand what you're saying, but I just wanted to jump in and say it's all the good shit. But also, I totally know what you mean. I just have
absolutely. But I was very curious. What I didn't understand is how they were going to at first I thought, like, are they going to truly just do an entire season of just replicating different TV series? And I was like, how are they going to actually make this work? But the minute that they started folding in, like, again, reality, quote unquote reality, it was again, mind bogglingly well done. It was just masterful. in the way that they tied in the different story elements. This is one for if you're looking to start in TV or script writing or whatever. This is a masterclass in how to just completely upend expectations and do something that's not been done before, which Marvel consistently does. Stuff that's never been done before. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think
I mean, especially yeah.
Go ahead.
That was it. I was just like, yeah, because DC keeps dropping the ball. And I can't wait for the Snyder Cut. The Snyder Cut's going to be terrible. I said it here first. And moving on, Doug.
We said that last week, so you're good.
I can't wait.
I'm not trying to.
No, I can't wait to hunker down and watch 4 hours of that nonsense.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, I don't want to shit on people's work. I don't like doing that. But Justin and I have been racking our brains trying to figure out how this could possibly be good. And I don't know. But hey, I'll try to be hopeful and optimistic, but we'll see.
I'm happy that people are doing what they want. They worked hard to call for this, and that's very nice for them. But I will be shocked if it's good.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed. Yep. Some of the things that I found interesting about this too, and the reaction is you've seen a lot of talk about Age of Ultron since this show has come out, and a lot of people are like, "Hey, Age of Ultron."
Disney Plus does nothing but recommend that movie after the episode ends. I'm
It's
like,
smart.
I get it. I fucking get it. Enough.
Hey man, AI ain't dumb, all right?
Right.
It ain't dumb, you know?
Maybe, I don't know, recommend fucking the Rescuers Down Under. Like, do something else. Give me something different.
No, this relates to that. But I've just really enjoyed the deepening of that. And also, I love how people are like, hey man, can we agree that Age of Ultron's not a bad movie? And then other people are like, it's only good because of WandaVision. Like, people are like going back and forth. I'm like, why?
Ultron's always been one of my favorites. I love that movie. And, I mean, one, it gave me Elizabeth Olsen, so I'm forever grateful for that. But James Spader as Ultron is for me, top tier villain. And there are moments that don't quite work. I will admit that, but overall, it's one of my favorite Marvel movies. I'll admit I'm not saying it's better than the first Avengers, but I watch it more than the first Avengers. I
think it's tough in the pantheon of Avengers movies. You know, first of all, you've got Infinity War and Endgame, which are just, you know, those are tough to beat. The first Avengers, I think, is special because it was something we'd never seen before. Upon going back and rewatching it, it's not as great as I remember because we've gotten so much amazing stuff that is built on top of that. Like, for example, like I can't stand Cap's suit in that movie. Like, I just like, God, this looks so schlocky compared to where he is now. Like, I'm saying that Winter Soldier is one of my favorite movies. It's like he's in this badass suit. He's like whooping ass and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, you get to Infinity War, and then you go back and watch this. It's like, Jesus, he really is in a star-spangly outfit, you know, punching aliens and stuff like that. But I'm obviously very nostalgic seeing that in the theater. I will never forget that. The community in that theater, hearing people cheer, shout. Like, for the longest time, I never knew that Hulk said puny God after he smashes Loki because everyone was losing their minds as he's just whipping the shit out of him. Just people were engaged. I was like, this is a special moment. And, you know, I think Ultron was also good, but when you compare it with everything else, I think it does fall short in some areas, but it's also really great. I agree. James Spader's awesome. You get that wonderful cold open where they're just beating ass and taking names. Like, you have that incredible stuff. You get to see them like more fully real. It's a nice step towards where we end up. And plus you get Vision. You have that wonderful, and one of my favorite moments is that dialogue between Vision and Ultron at the end where, you know, Ultron's just like, you know, you're unbearably naive, and just like there's just Vision being like, yes, I know they're doomed, but just because something dies doesn't mean that it's not beautiful because it doesn't last. Like, just wonderful philosophical things, which carries over to WandaVision, that wonderful moment the most recent episode where he defines grief, which everyone,
oh my God,
rightfully lost their minds. I want to misquote it, but he said, "What is grief except love, like continuing or enduring?" I believe,
or something like that.
Yeah, which was just like,
if not love for certain. There's been a lot of like discourse on Twitter about this, which is such bullshit. People, first it was like everyone loved it, and then people got mad about people loving it and were calling it out and all this stuff. And it's like, if you're really like that shitty to be like, this is a bullshit line, whatever. It's like, are you like, what have you been experienced this last year? If it didn't hit you, then clearly you're living a good pandemic life.
How is that a bullshit line? That's a people fantastic line.
A few people, but they happen to people with a lot of followers. So it just like started this whole discourse. But I would say for the most part, people are they loved it.
Yeah.
I think people are just like, if you're not as obsessed with something that people are into, you just like get grumpy about it. And
Guilty.
and like, I've been accused of, someone asked me once, are you only allowed to say nice things on the internet? And I'm like, no, I just don't like, I'm just not about getting on and shitting on stuff.
Yeah.
That's just like, unless it's Dark Phoenix, I'll tweet about how much garbage that movie is all day. Other than that, I'm a pretty positive guy.
First of all, I want to give you an award because to both you and Justin, because you both have seen that movie. So you guys, you get an award for that. So congratulations. That's time you'll never get back.
It's the biggest of my entire life. Okay, I'm just gonna real quick because nothing makes me more mad than Simon Kinberg. I've seen him speak in person. He seems like a nice dude. No real but they let this man. He wrote X-Men: The Last Stand, and then a decade plus later, they thought that movie was a failure. Who should we let retell the story? How about Simon Kinberg again? And this time, they let him direct it. I mean, that is like like, congrats, white men. That's your life. You fail so hard, you like to do it again. Like
with benefits,
Exactly. Like, first of all, a woman should have made that movie, but most of all, the fact that they let Simon Kinberg fuck it up twice, that is some privilege I will never know or understand. That's insane.
Well, not only that, he fucked up the Phoenix story twice. I mean, Jesus, like, he failed miserably in The Last Stand. Last Stand, I hated that movie, and just, it's one of those things where I'm like, do we have to do this story again? Like, let's face it, Apocalypse, not a good movie at all. And they're like, you know what we're going to do next? Phoenix. I'm like, you guys are just making the same mistakes DC is doing. You're just hopping from one giant thing to the next. Now, granted, you haven't done the world building that Marvel has, and you don't have the time to do it, but it's like, do we have to do that? Because you can't do that in 2.5 hours. Like, you can't tell that story in that short amount of time.
Even at its worst, like Last Stand, I think is a little more tolerable now because Days of Future Past retconned it. So it's like kind of fun to watch because it's like, Days of Future Past erased you. I don't mind Apocalypse. Apocalypse isn't a great movie, but I rewatched it like a month ago. It's still like, it has flaws, but like I'll watch it. It didn't make me viscerally angry. Like even fucking, what was the recent one? New Mutants. New Mutants was not very good, but it also like didn't make me want to punch a wall like Dark Phoenix did. It didn't make me want to burn down Simon Kinberg's house. Just kidding. I'm not gonna do that.
If it burns down, it wasn't Jamie.
Hey man, wildfires happen in California all the time,
Okay, that's why I shouldn't say that because I do live in California.
Look, here's the thing. He knows he has it coming. All right.
Hopefully he'll take like God damn it, what's the guy director who did Batman Forever and Batman and Robin?
Schulmacher.
I was like Silverstein. Like that's a band. That's not who it is. But like people have shouted, I'm like, you've ruined. Oh, what do we got over here? What do we got?
I'm showing you that I have a Batman and Robin poster in my room.
That's right. It's one of your favorite Batman movies. I forgot. But people have shouted, I'm like, you ruined Batman. He goes, I know. Like he just owns up to it. He's like, hey, it was my interpretation of it. He's like, people didn't like it. He's like, whatever. I'm at peace. I'm at peace with that.
Yell at me while I'm on my yacht. I know.
Yeah, it's like you ruined it. I know.
Because because the Schumacher Batmans are like, even like, yeah, they're so dumb, but they're fun and they're entertaining, and so many of us love them. I've had that poster on my wall since I was 11 years old, and there's a picture of me when I was 7 dressed as Poison Ivy because of that movie. There's something about that, even though like for comic book fans they're terrible, but like they're still fun, entertaining, historical films. X-Men: The Last Stand and Dark Phoenix cannot say the same.
Yeah, no.
Doug, you know how I am when movies come on like TBS at 2 a.m. I'll stay up all night and I'll talk to Doug the next day. I'm like, I did it again. I stayed up and I watched. He's like, you have every streaming service that's out there. Why don't you just find it and watch it? And I'm like, there's something when it's on TBS, man. If X-Men Last Stand, that is one of like 2 movies that I won't watch. If it's on, I will, out of spite. I'm like, fuck you, Nielsen. I'll just turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's no good.
There's a very sad photo shoot of me and my friends in high school. Oh, we went to the midnight showing and we had a little party before and we're all dressed in X-Men characters. We recreated the Last Stand poster. Like we were like 16, ready to go. And like even at 16, we walked into that theater like, wow, we sure dedicated a whole day to that.
The only time I've seen that in real life is when I went to see Matrix Revolutions, and a guy walked in like a Neo trench coat with glasses and everything, and then when the movie was over, like he had his trench coat off and he like walked out with his head down, like he felt really embarrassed. I was like, oh man, I feel bad for you, buddy.
Sorry, bud. Wolverine Origins is another one that I will like.
Man,
should just be burned to the ground.
You know what? I kind of put all that stuff in a category of like, before Marvel, and I look at those as stepping stones. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the first X-Men movie. Looking back on it at the time,
I am.
It was really good. That and the Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, like those were elevating what already existed to the next level, which led to things like The Dark Knight, which ultimately led to things like Iron Man and everything. Like they were stepping stones to other things. So I look back at them and I was like, I respect them. I don't enjoy watching them, but especially that one in particular. But I can at least understand where we are now, where we've gotten to. But nowadays, like post Marvel. Well, I'm sorry. We have to talk about what's going on in the chat now. First things first, I want to give credit to Jared because he said
he committed. He knew he was in for it and he committed.
He committed to it. 26 messages were deleted. Well, he said anything. What's March 21 except March 2020 enduring? Which I'm like, well played, sir. And then he
mentioned Superman Returns again, and our moderator banned him and deleted all of his messages.
He timed him out for 600 seconds. So he
I wish I could see this. I'm not on the chat.
That's totally fine. It was just very funny. It was just like, oh boy, there it goes. Like there, and he's been timed out. So
and Jared called it out too. He said he made a second reference to Superman Returns, and he even said parentheses, I know I did it twice.
That's me. I do my Works Marvel podcast, Phase Zero. Check us out on Twitch Friday mornings, Friday noon. Time difference is different everywhere. I don't remember what time it starts. It's at. It doesn't matter. But that's me. It's not an episode if I don't mention Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So
there you go.
We all have our obsession. Jared, I respect it. I'm never gonna watch Superman Returns, but I really respect you.
The honesty, the candor, it's beautiful. It's lovely. But yeah, when I look at like what Marvel has built and what they've done, I don't think it can be replicated. But at the same time, like I get mad when companies like DC try to take a shortcut. They didn't spend the time doing the world building. They just sped through it, and that's how we've gotten to where they are today. But that's also the beauty of what Marvel has done, is because they slow played it and they took 11 years to build, and now we're like on year 12, 13 at this point of this world that we built. We can get a show like WandaVision, which is strange, unusual, something we've never seen before, creative, yet at the same time, what I've loved recently, especially the most recent episode, was phenomenal, was we thought we knew most of, Wanda's backstory, but we got to see it which normally I'd be like, well, we already know this, but there was something really special seeing her as a young girl, watching her favorite, shows, her DVDs, with her family and enjoying that. You get to see that Stark missile land and it didn't go off. And what I loved is that, you start to learn, it's like, wait, you were there for 2 days and it didn't go off? Kind of strange that you were safe. Because that was almost like a throwaway line, kind of a throwaway line in Age of Ultron. Like, yeah, that's why we hate Stark, because this bomb landed but never went off. And you're like, now I'm sure they've taken that and they're like, why didn't it go off? Is it possible that she didn't just get her stuff from the Mind Stone, that maybe she's had this power all along, which I also love because I don't think they could really dabble with that because Fox owned mutants. So, which, speaking of, having Evan Peters show up as Pietro was just like
we talk about that for a fucking 7 hours conservatively?
Yes, just like the doors were blown open to the multiverse and to the X-Men. Oh,
I had to explain that to our DC guy.
I just wish that they would confirm that it's actually him from the movies. Like, we still don't know that for sure, and that is my only thing. If WandaVision can end any which way, but if they never let us have that, Evan Peters is a Quicksilver from X-Men, I'm gonna be. Just tell me he was plucked from another alternate reality. That's fine. Just tell me that, and I'll be happy.
Right.
Oh, Sly says it sounds like they're gonna bail on that. Yeah, Darcy said. He was recast. I don't know why you would bail on that, because especially when you're gonna head into the multiverse anyway, like with Doctor Strange, lean into it,
Yeah, I'm worried that it was like, this is just a funny thing we're doing, and no, you can right. There has to be an explanation. And Catherine Hahn in the last episode was kind of like, your brother's dead, so this. But I wish she would have said just the words. So I took him from another multiverse.
Right, because she's like, he's in another place, he's far away, because there's all sorts of speculation, right, which I think we can kind of get into a little bit too, of like Agatha, because people have talked about, because there's the reference to the Nexus, right, in one of the commercials. It's like some people were suggesting that Agatha has either killed or imprisoned the Nexus Guardian, which is in Westview, and she has access to these other multiverses, or able to draw energy from it, which is on paper sounds insane, but most Marvel stuff on paper sounds insane. But the idea, I think that would be such a miss if you just did that just for a gag, versus which it would be unlike Marvel to do that, just to be like, ha-ha! It would seem so much more impactful for them to just slowly start opening the door to all that world, all that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, the X-Men exist, in another universe too, a bad one, a dark one, and we'll have a better one here soon.
Just pluck all my faves and bring them over. I would love to see. I love the cast. Let them all come back. Just do a better job.
Just do a better job. But yeah, that was such a wonderful moment.
I love First Class. I love Days of Future Past. I don't even hate, like I said, Apocalypse. It's just, my dark truth is I've only seen Logan 3 times. Yes, it's an amazing film, but that is just it's too bleak. I'm really sad that's the end of that phase of X-Men, of those stories, because even though it's a beautiful, amazing movie, it's like everyone's dead. Okay,
it's a bummer. And
right.
My side of that loves that. I love that movie. I remember actually, Justin, you and I went to the theater to see that together, and it was we did the top popcorn trick. It was great. Which
was weird because we each had our own tub of popcorn.
I know. It was like, you want to have some of my popcorn? Like, no, I got my own. And it was just kind of a strange standoff where, we just had our own popcorn. That's all we did. Yeah. I don't think we understood the bit, but we committed. So, but, Logan was it was one of those things where I appreciated it because, and this is just me, I'm a big fan of the Dark Knight and Christopher Nolan's universe. Dark Knight Rises. Okay, yeah, I get it. I'll take criticism for that. But what I liked about what DC was doing personally was, which I wish they would have leaned to, was the dark and grittiness of it, because Marvel, very bright, very happy. I was like, DC, you've got a lane here that doesn't really exist. Lean into it. Just head in that direction. Be dark, be gritty, be a little more serious. It's okay. It's fine. But I kind of like that about Logan, because it took, I don't know, there's something about it that was very appealing to see some of these really powerful characters that were near their end and how they were sort of dealing with it. And especially like Xavier, like him losing his mind and what that means for, super phenomenal. And you make a very valid point. It's too dark and it's too depressing.
It's a phenomenal film. I'm still pissed he wasn't nominated for an Oscar, Patrick Stewart. But it's like, it doesn't bother me that X and Wolverine died. It bothers me that everyone else died off screen, and we just never,
right.
Just knowing that the faves I grew up with since I was 10 years old are just like, well, Charles got old and killed him by accident. Like, oh, it just hurts my heart. But I have nothing negative truly to say about Logan. It's a fantastic film. I just can't watch it that much because it makes me bummed. Yeah,
it's pretty bummed. And would you prefer to have seen them all die on screen as like a cold open, or maybe you find out later on you get to watch as Xavier explodes their brains?
That would have been.
I just want like some kind of like travel back in time and we get them back. Like, we can keep Logan and X dead because those men are old and they want to retire, but I just wish we could somehow bring everybody back.
Well, I think Marvel's set up to do that perfectly if they so choose, because they've got Wanda and they've got Doctor Strange. Like, if anyone can traverse the dimensions, we can bring whomever we'd like. I think WandaVision is a perfect example of this.
Well, let me ask you this, Jamie. If you were in charge, how would you bring the X-Men into this universe? Based on everything that's happened up to this point, mutants haven't really existed or whatever. Like, how would you introduce them into this now established version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Already there. The Doctor Strange movie is literally called The Multiverse of Madness. That's it right there. You got it. You nailed it. Sold. It would be so easy. Like, we have a multiverse and it's madness. So let's bring in those actors. I know it's wishful thinking, and Hugh Jackman deserves to retire if he wants to. Let the man, I get it. He just wants to be in musicals, and me too, Hugh Jackman. I understand.
The only one that's going to bring him back is Ryan Reynolds. That's the only person who's going to bring him back.
I really think Ryan will get him eventually. If even if it's just for like a little Deadpool cameo. It sparked this whole internet feud that they've made a lot of money off of that feud.
And made some great strides for charities too.
Really. They took that silly little feud that started because Ryan wanted Hugh in a Deadpool movie, and now it's like for charities and for each other and their respective businesses. I wouldn't know what Aviation Gin and Laughing Man Coffee were if it wasn't for the Hugh Jackman Ryan Reynolds.
I love it. We have a theme song for when I don't like something or I go on a rant. It's called Doug Hates Stuff, and Sly suggests we need a music drop for when Justin simps for Ryan Reynolds, because
that's
that happens.
A very good point.
Yeah.
There's the thing. I took the time to make the Doug Hates Stuff theme song. Someone else, I'm going to task anyone out there. It is wide open. Please make the Justin Simps for Ryan Reynolds theme song. Because I love that man more than I should.
He does. He absolutely does. No, I think you're right. I think the multiverse is going to be kind of like the catalyst for this next phase of the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I also find it interesting too, because of the pandemic, which I find interesting. At this point, I'm getting the feeling that we should have already known what S.W.O.R.D. is. We see it at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. We get a glimpse of Fury up there, but they're kind of just like, yeah, we're S.W.O.R.D. And I'm like, I feel like there was something, I don't know if it was Black Widow or whatever, but it seems like there should have been another piece of this, which I thought was also interesting, because at some point Black Widow has to get released because these things have connections and you can only delay them for so long before it's like, God, we have to do this or it's not going to make sense, which no one obviously anticipated.
Yeah.
Meow.
Yeah. Agreed.
Totally agreed. Yeah. So let's talk about predictions. We've got, after the most recent episode, we got to know more about Agatha, and it was Agatha all along, as the theme song suggested, and she was obviously very infatuated with Wanda because Wanda has this incredible power. She just talks to, which by the way, one of my favorite parts is when she sort of like shows what she can do based on the spells that she knows, and then relays it to Wanda. She's like, and you can do this for everybody, but this is something that I have to do. I have to do this incantation. It's taken me years to do, and you can just do it for everyone. She's like, how did you do this? Like, I want to know.
I had to explain that to my mom. My mom was like, she was like, so Catherine Hahn is like better witch, not as good. I'm like, Mom, no, it's just Catherine Hahn is like studied. She's been around for a couple hundred years. She knows, like, but where Wanda she just has the power and doesn't know how to use it or control it. No one's taught her, which I have comments about when we get to our predictions.
Yeah,
it's Salieri and Mozart. Like it's the person that it just comes naturally to, and the person that hates that person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because I don't think Agatha is the main villain of the show. I
don't think Agatha is a villain at all. I think we're going to find out that she's quite misunderstood.
Yeah.
Having read a lot recently of the Vision and the Scarlet Witch, Agatha is not a villain. She's literally, she is known in the comics as Wanda's mentor. And right. I would be really surprised if this ends with her being, that's it. She's the villain and it's over. I really do think she's going to team up with Wanda in the end and help to battle the White Vision or whatever it comes to be. Excuse me.
Jared says Agatha might be the hero except for killing Sparky.
Yeah,
that is true. She killed a dog, and for a lot of people, understandably, that's an unforgivable offense.
Right. Well, I mean,
but not for Jamie. Jamie's like, kill twice, kill 3 of them. I don't care.
She's called upon the curse of John Wick, so he's gonna come in now. He doesn't stand for that shit.
Multiverse of madness.
Right. Exactly. It's the Doctor Strange and the multiverse of studio contracts. That's what this is. It's just going to be everyone like finally going, you know what? Sure, just take the property.
Unless it's like what Zenny said in Sparky was the villain, and so she killed it, knowing that she had to save everybody.
You know what? I like that theory. Because when it comes to my love of dogs versus my love of Catherine Hahn, sorry, Catherine Hahn wins. You can kill all the dogs.
You heard it here. You can kill all the dogs. Jamie. If you're running for political office, that's going to be used against you, just so you know.
There it is. Yep.
Oh, no.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's not alcohol in this mug, guys.
I love this. Castaway Studio says Infinity War would have been a lot shorter if Thanos killed John Wick's dog.
Done.
Game over. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I think what I loved about that was, again, also in that episode, you got more fleshed out of Wanda's backstory, getting to see what happened when she interacted with the Mind Stone, seeing that vision of herself like as fully realized, and just learning that she's had this ability that was further enhanced by the Mind Stone, and obviously that wonderful scene between her and Vision as they're sort of growing connected, but then also seeing Agatha being like, oh shit, I know what you are. This is bad. I'm gonna say this episode was the only episode that really left moments of it, not the whole thing, left a bad taste in my mouth. Okay.
Because it was like the writers were like, you know what? We haven't taken a nice giant exposition dump on people for a while. So let's go ahead and just do a big steamy exposition dump, and everyone's just going to have to sit in it. Because some of the dialogue felt so when Catherine Hahn was in the cell with Wanda and she's like, so encounter with the Infinity Stone, this and this and this, caused something that would have died in the. I'm like, all right, you don't have to physically explain the thing we just saw. Like there was so much exposition, basically taking the hand of people who don't get it and being like, all right, we're going to go ahead and walk you through this, you dum-dum.
I didn't see it like that. I didn't see it. I get what you're saying, but for me, it was really diving into an aspect we don't get to see a lot in Marvel. And I've said this many times, with the exception of maybe Iron Man 3, just someone's like reaction and trauma. Like these poor Marvel superheroes really go through it, and we don't get a lot of explanation into why that fucks you up. And I didn't think of this episode as like an explainer of exposition. I thought of it as an explainer as to why Wanda has mentally shattered. And
I'm fine with that.
Are you?
No. I guess you're talking more about those lines, and I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Like I loved watching, I loved seeing where Wanda had come, and the one line of exposition I didn't mind was when Agnes said Agnes, right? Yeah. Agatha? Whatever. When Catherine Hahn said, parents dead, brother dead, vision dead. Like when she was going through that, I was like, that's a powerful thing where she's pushing Wanda to that mental breaking point to get her there. That I loved, but I would have loved just seeing. I'm a big fan of the show don't tell. So show it to me. I don't need the explanation of what I just watched. I think that was the part I'm like, okay, this is for the people who aren't committed. Like they're doing this to bring everyone along. I get that, but I don't need that. Show it to me and then move on to the next scene. I think that we could have packed a little bit more in.
It's fair. It's a fair observation.
One of my least favorite things is when a movie flashbacks to things you've already seen in the movie, and that is something the Wolverine Origins movie does. It's like, I'm watching.
Oh God.
You do not need to flash back to moments of this film I've already seen. That drives me crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's like, oh, you think I'm stupid? Cool.
It's like some movies, I think like that. It's a little different but it's like they really treat you like you're dumb.
You're right.
Well, I mean, that's what they think. I think a lot of their fans is like, these dumb shits aren't going to remember what happened an hour ago. Let's show it to them again. It's like you really don't have to do that. Like, you really don't. Like, what I've said this before, I'll say it again. One of my favorite moments in a movie theater is I was in my hometown watching Inception, and when it was done, I stood up with my friends and my family. I'm like, man, that was good. This woman behind me goes, I didn't understand shit, and I was just like, I was like, listen. This isn't the movie Primer, okay? Like, this isn't that complicated. Like, it's dreams within dreams, and she's just like, I don't fucking get it. Like, just with just a real hick accent and everything. I'm like, I gotta get out of here. Like, this is. But that's
Chicago.
That's how they probably look at people like, that lady's not gonna get it. We want to make sure that she pays her $15 to get in there because we don't want her to feel dumb, but they sacrifice because they're playing to the lowest common denominator, right? Instead of other people are like, hey, you have brains, Jared goes, that lady probably lost her mind during Tenet. The lady probably didn't watch Tenet.
Not again, Chris Nolan, not again.
Not today.
But I'm very curious because I have racked my brain. I can't fucking come up with one plausible guess at where this is going. So I want to hear from the expert where you think this is going, Jamie.
Well, Justin, what I think is, oh, my bad. That's right. We got a real expert here.
So it's interesting. I've never been one to I'm not a big guesser of things because I don't know. Because then you get disappointed. But what I think is happening, as I said earlier, I don't think Agatha's really a villain. I do think that Billy and Tommy are going to die.
Good.
Because they get, I know that
Spoiler, Doug hates kids.
But we know in the comics, it's kind of weird. And it all comes like a lot of people think Mephisto's showing up. And I think that if Mephisto is a thing, it's going to be like a post-credit kind of like Thanos in the first Avengers movie. But there's like a big like the twins get like absorbed and it's all magic related. And I think that they're going to die. But I also think that we're leading to Young Avengers and that they'll come back just like they do in the comics. And be a little older and be a part of this new Avengers team with Cassie Lang and Kate Bishop and all that. And I think that it's going to mentally break Wanda even more, and that is going to lead into Doctor Strange 2, because in the comics Doctor Strange also helps her after a breakdown, and I think that that's where we're headed. And my hope is that they don't kill Agatha, but also in the comics Agatha is like a ghost half the time. Even like she dies, but she always comes back and chats with Wanda. So I feel like that Marvel sees how much we all love Catherine Hahn, and they're going to be like, we're gonna bring her back as a ghost or something.
So she's gonna be a Force ghost, is what you're saying, because they own that property too.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's gonna be. I think that I hate to say it because I love Vision and I love Paul Bettany's Vision, but Spider-Man Far From Home takes place 8 months after WandaVision, and we saw him in the schools in memoriam. And, maybe we are just going to keep White Vision, and then he's going to have to slowly relearn him, his self, and maybe it's going to be like a Gamora situation. But I don't have high hopes that Vision's going to exist beyond WandaVision, and that makes me sad.
Is White Vision an actual element in the comics as well?
I don't know. I don't remember all the details, but basically, he comes back as the White Vision and he has no memories or anything of himself. And there's even like, this has been going around on Twitter a lot. There's like a panel of Tommy and Billy being like, "Daddy, why are you white?" And I think that could be what we're leading into, but the way that the end credit scene set it up is that it might just be the villain. And a lot of people think that when Paul Bettany was like, the big cameo is someone I've wanted to work with my whole life, was he just talking about himself and like the vision thing. So I think that that's all a possibility. But I don't think that, I think in Doctor Strange 2, I don't think Tommy and Billy will exist at that point. Again, they're going to come back, I have no doubt. But I think there's going to be a big bad reveal in the post credits or at the very end. And Mephisto seems to be the likely one, but who knows?
So I love the fact that you brought up, again, my mind did not go there. And I love this, the Young Avenger, like with Kate Bishop and what's Ant-Man's daughter? Cassie Lang and these two. Yeah. I just like, and it makes so much sense if they've got all these shows coming out that could then parlay. Cause this is the first time that the shows and the movies have been directly, like straight up directly intertwined. And so they could easily use this as the springboard. That's shockingly, I'm very excited about this.
Like there's no way that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's why poor Emma Furman, I feel so bad for that kid. She was cute and so good in Endgame, and then they're like, no, since it's clearly that they're gonna expand into Young Avengers and they wanted a big name, so they got Catherine Newton, that's her name, right? Who I like. She's a great actor. I don't know if you guys have seen Spontaneous, but I highly recommend the movie Spontaneous. It's very good. Brian Duffield wrote and directed it, and he also wrote Love and Monsters, which is great. He wrote Underwater, which was fun. Like he's having a career surgence, this guy named Brian Duffield, who I really recommend checking out his stuff. But I get why they like recast, but they didn't even tell Emma Furman. She found out with the rest of us. And I just feel so bad. She's so young. She's like 18, 19, and she thought she had this like great future in Marvel, and then they just recast her for no reason other than she wasn't that famous. But they don't need that in Marvel. You don't need a big name at this point. And, like, I just feel so bad for that kid. She's just so young, and like that's gonna fuck her up forever. Like that's like a really shitty thing to do to somebody.
Yeah, I agree. So let me ask you a question. Are those kids real? Like, are Wanda's kids real? Because they were manifested in this environment, and we see that Vision isn't real. It's sort of, poured out of her soul. But are they real?
As Monica says, they are real. They're her children. She birthed them. But I think I wish I could remember the specifics because it's all so weird in the comics. But I think it's revealed that all the thing with the chaos magic, and somehow Billy and Tommy were born because of Mephisto, or I'm so not 100% right, but there's something like at larger play, which is why they are able to come back later. But I do think that in the comics, if I'm not mistaken, I've read so many recently and they're all blending together, is that Agatha is a part of the reason why she takes them out of the thing. But I think, yes, they are real. And I actually, do I have this comic here? Yeah. So Young Avengers, the Children's Crusade, which I haven't read yet. It's on my list. It's about Billy and Tommy, Wiccan and Speed, thinking that Wanda's their mother and like going to try to find her, and like, so that's what I think is coming. They're gonna disappear, and then when they're older and when they're officially Wiccan and Speed, then they'll figure out where they come from, and it's Wanda's magic.
That would kind of make sense. Like two things. One, it's strange that the Sword director lied about what Wanda did, right? He said that she came in and stole Vision, which is not true. So,
bitch.
So, obviously he's suspect. He wants to, he's totally cool with killing Wanda. But it would kind of make sense with Mephisto. I know that's the big whatever, and it probably won't happen. Everyone will be like, what the fuck? But because he makes deals with people, right? He makes deals with people. That's his whole thing, for souls and all that sort of shit. So it would make sense that in her grieving, she would somehow make a wish or do some sort of thing to make this happen. And perhaps that's, what is going on and everything like that. So maybe she asked for the power to be able to do this or whatever. Who knows? For what made this happen. But you made a good point about the timeline, because this is like what? How long after Endgame? Like
it's a week or two. It's really short, and so we know this takes place many months before Spider-Man.
Yeah. And everything seemed okay in Spider-Man as far as we know. Obviously, we're not focused on the other stuff that's happening, because he's dealing with what he's doing.
Okay. I don't think 8 months into the blip, you can start going on school field trips to Europe. But
yeah, that's a fair point.
A little too. I mean, I love that movie. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah,
I love that movie. But it is like, really 8 months later and like this back to normal. I don't know. I've seen The Leftovers. Things were pretty bleak for a long time.
Yeah, that people were pretty down in the dumps, to say the least. Cults rose up, new religions. Like, yeah, it's like
2% of the population, not 50%.
That's actually a really good point. You're right. Like, it was even more. Yeah. And which, by the way, also I loved the blip when it came back, dealing with Rambeau, and like seeing her just sort of like,
oh, it was so cool,
piece back together. It really humanized what that would, because in Spider-Man they just go poop and they're back and everyone's like, oh, the band is in the gymnasium now. But this one, it was like hospital panic, no one knows what's going on, everyone's like running into each other. Like, that sense of chaos was really like powerful to me. And having her be like, where's my mom? It's like, she's dead. She's like, what? No. It's like
picking up right where she remembers leaving off, but 5 fucking years have passed. Like, yeah,
and that's and I cannot wait, because I think similar to what they did with the attack on New York and how that permeated so many things like the Defenders and that world. I'm hoping that this blip will have long-term ramifications. I mean, again, you kind of hear that from the director of Sword, where he's like, you don't know what it was like the last 5 years. Like, people disappeared and we had to make do. And now, just because you're back, that doesn't mean that everything's hunky-dory. Like, we had to make sacrifices. We had to do things. And I'm wondering how that... Because imagine what that would be like for an entire generation of people. Half of the world is gone, and then they come back. It's like there's this disconnect, this thing that happened where... it's like, that's one of my favorite moments in Endgame, too, is when Scott Lang comes back and he sees this kid riding his bike. He's like, hey, what happened here? And the kid looks at him with just this dead eyes of like, what the fuck, man? Look around. Like, how do you not know what's going on? And that's the thing that has to permeate society. So you make up a good point. I haven't thought about that till now, Jamie, but the idea that everyone's like, we're going to Venice. Like,
look, after 1 year of a pandemic, where we're at. Talking
right?
about 5 years of people just straight up disappearing.
It's like, man,
fuck you.
This other Asian boy's hot now, and he's going to steal MJ from me. It's like, that's what they're worried about. Now, to be fair, maybe that's what's in high school kids' minds. You know what I mean? Maybe it's through the lens of simplicity, you know?
There's nothing exactly. I that movie's great, and I do think that's how teenagers would handle it. But I think in terms of school going on a European vacation seems extreme.
Yeah, right.
Well, who knows? I mean, you know. But the episode 4 is with the Monica cold open is the episode I've rewatched the most because that like hit, and that's the drama I've been waiting for, and I think that there's nothing more horrifying than the blip in a hospital. Like there was no better way to show the chaos and drama and horror.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that also lets us realize also the other like sort of implication is that there were people that disappeared in airplanes in midair, and those people came back and they're dead. Like
I have an answer to this because I tweeted this because I thought the same thing. I was like, what do you mean those people are dead? And someone sent me a quote where Kevin Feige did say specifically about airplanes, Hulk considered that. So anybody who was like in a precarious, dangerous spot, Hulk made sure they blipped back safely.
Awesome.
Because I had the same question. So apparently Hulk took care of all those people.
Well, that's good.
Thank God we had a genius with the genius level Hulk with the snapping. We're all very lucky.
It would have, you know, and I really don't want to see this because it would be boring to see, but I am really curious, like, when they're considering before they snap, like, what is going through their mind? Are they going through a checklist? They're like, all right, anyone who was blipped away in the last 5 years, check. Anyone who was in the air or in danger, get them to safety, check. Like, you know, same thing like when Iron Man's like, I'm going to snap away. Was this just like, get rid of Thanos and his army? Done. Boom. You like, they all disappear. They all fade away. Like, what is that? What's that contract like? You know, is it like you kind of go into the Infinity Gauntlet and there's like all 6 stones are like, all right, welcome to the trial. Present your case. It's just like, it goes on for like years within that time frame with the stones, and they're sitting there just going like, all right, do we get everything? It's like, on to the next issue. We have children who are playing in the street. Where would you like them to go? Like, just
they pull out the giant contracts. They're like, all right, section 68 subsection 4,
and that's why when you snap you're almost dead, because inside you're like, kill me so this will be over, you know.
Hulk definitely did a lot because he says later that he tried to bring Nat back. When he did the snap. So, you know, like he had a laundry list in his head of things he was trying to make happen.
Also, tacos. I'm hungry.
Right?
Don't even say it. I'm really hungry.
But that's actually a good point, because I imagine he would have, again, he's arguing, he's like, I want to bring this one back. It's like, sorry, her life was forfeit in order to have this stone, so that's off the table. You know, he was, you know, like that case just, they're like, sorry, we were overruled. You can't do that, you know, so I don't know. Again, that's just like one of those nerdy logistical things I think of, like when I watch the movie Zootopia. And I'm like, how do all these animals exist? What's their economy like? I mean, does every place have to be accessible for small rodents as well as elephants and stuff? Like, how does this work? What are bathrooms like? When you're building stuff, being up to code must be an absolute nightmare. Like, you know, I start wandering down these really insane places, and my wife will bring that up and be like, please don't go to Zootopia on this. Like, I don't really want to think about it. I'm like, but I'm curious.
This is where Practical Doug kills magic.
Yeah, that's where I kill it. I'm like, well, I mean, let's consider for a moment, you know, the labor. I mean, when all small rodents just want to use leftover resources from the larger animals, because it would just, why build so small? Like, I don't know. I just start going in very weird places. It's the cost of living is much less for a rodent versus a large animal. So what's the pay like? Is there a discrepancy? Is that fair? You know, it's crazy, you know.
It's
crazy up here too, Jamie. I get you. It's a
tough place to exist up there.
It's a tough place to be. It's a tough place to be.
You know what? You know what's another tough place to be?
What's that?
In the middle of the arena known as Welcome to the throwdown.
We did it. Nice job.
We got
Great
there.
transition work, Justin.
As always.
So, Doug, you ready?
Let's do it.
All right.
In honor of our guest, this week's throwdown is between the Olsen sisters versus the Mara sisters. Now, first things first, I know there are 3 Olsen sisters and there are 2 Mara sisters. So, do we even the playing field? Do we only do Mary Kate and Ashley? But it seems kind of crazy to leave out Elizabeth, at the same time.
Are the Mara sisters twins or just sisters?
I think they're just sisters. Okay. Jared goes, the who? Kate Mara and Rooney Mara. You know Kate Mara from House of Cards? And actually, she was in Iron Man 2. She was in Iron Man 2. She served Tony the papers at the beginning of the movie. And then Rooney Mara was, I think, in the not How to Train Your Dragon, Girl with a Dragon Tattoo remake.
How to Train Your Dragon Tattoo.
Very different movies. Very no clue, no idea. Jared, Jesus, Jared.
I feel like it would depend who's where, because if we're just doing MK and A versus Kate and Rooney, I mean, I do think that the Maras have a bit of a more of a advantage, because MK and A are very tiny little smokers. I mean, they're gonna want to breath quick.
Tiny little smokers.
But if you are, my favorite thing in the history of celebrity gossip is that Mary Kate's wedding had bowls of cigarettes at the reception. Every table had bowls of cigarettes.
What is this, like a prison raffle or something? We're playing prison bingo. Who gets all the cigarettes?
I'll say this though about. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. No.
I was gonna say I'll say this about the Olsen twins is that when you've had the kind of life they've had, they've seen some shit, and they're scrappy. I feel they're scrappy. They come to play like when you got that old school cocaine heroin shit going on through your veins, and you got
allegedly
sure, and you've got I mean
the Maras are weird.
Well, that's
you don't marry Joaquin Phoenix for being normal.
Wait, which one married Joaquin Phoenix?
Rooney Mara just had a baby with Joaquin Phoenix.
Did not know that. Good to know.
They named him River though, which is really sweet.
Oh.
Really sad.
Oh.
But here's the thing, you're talking to the world's I've said this many times, the Olsens are my royal family. When I was a little kid, Full House was my favorite show. I was an official member of the Mary Kate and Ashley fan club. The only VHSs, I tweeted a picture the other day, the only VHS tapes I've saved in my life, I have all my Mary Kate and Ashley VHSs. And Elizabeth Olsen has now become my number one crush, my favorite actress. So you can't the Olsens are gonna kick some fucking ass. But the Maras would give them a run for their money, because I think that take Elizabeth out of it, MK and A versus Rooney, and
Mara.
It's they're all fucking weird, all of them, across the board.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I think, is the only semi-normal one. They're all weird. One of my strongest Kate Mara memories is her being on the red carpet for, I think, the Golden Globes with Kevin Spacey, pre-Kevin Spacey stuff, is they were so clearly drunk together. And, Kevin was, being very, flirty with Kate. And it was so obvious that Kate was, bearding for him that night. And it was, very clear. But if you're bearding for Kevin Spacey, you're a little weird. If you're having a baby at Joaquin Phoenix, you're a little weird. If you're Mary Kate and Ashley and you grew up like that to the point where now you don't want to be around any public light, you're just having your little fashion show and you show up once a year to the Met Gala in your weird witch gowns, you're a little weird. I'm excited to see this showdown because it's gonna get sloppy.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if all four of them had mutant powers that we didn't know about, and that's the moment where they all come out. Like, one of them turns into a werewolf, like one of them just like has claws come out of their forearms, like Baraka from Mortal Kombat 2. Like, just one of them is a vampire. Like, I don't know, man. Like, they all of a sudden it's just like they reveal themselves because they're like, we are mortal enemies, and now that we are set to fight each other, let our true forms be realized. And one of them actually knows how to do magic, like just like starts shooting fire bolts and shit out of her hands. Like, I would not be surprised if that were the case.
I'll say this. I think that, again, the Maras, I think, are they are not tiny twigs. Like, they are regular sized people who could probably do some damage.
Regular sized people.
That being said, I do think that the Olsens and the shit they've gone through, I would not want to encounter either of them in a dark alley.
Yeah,
Am I correct in thinking the Maras are the Maras trust fund kids? I could be wrong. Someone Google this. I think that the Maras might be like rich, have some rich privilege there, which I think will tone you down in a fight. I think that'll lose you some scrapped points.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could be wrong, but I think that they might have, the Maras have money.
When you had to build your empire, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, when you're literally 9 months old and you start building your empire, like the Olsen did, no wonder they're messed up. Like, they literally started at 9 months.
That's legitimately cuckoo.
How do they mess up anymore? I think that they seem to be doing well.
So in the chat, as Doug's looking this up, Jared goes, if someone told me that the Olsen twins had murdered a man and covered it up, I'd believe you.
Yeah.
According to SF Gate, from the
most trusted source
from their blog on November 1st, 2011, Rooney Mara, the headline is Rooney Mara, I'm no trust fund baby. But apparently Mara insists her recent string of good luck has nothing to do with her football-loving great-grandfathers, Tim Mara, founder of the New York Giants, and Art Rooney, founder of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Revealing all of her accomplishments are born out of hard work, not her lineage as an heiress or a trust fund baby. There's some wealth. There's some wealth there,
Yeah.
That's and that's fine. Like, good for you. But that you grow up in an easier environment.
Yeah, it's not to say
are they related to Andy Rooney at all?
I don't think so. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's not to say that they don't work hard and they haven't trained or whatever done their stuff, but it's it's the idea of privilege, right? You have money, you have resources. It applies to some comforts in life,
Also,
yeah.
The Olsen sisters have a brother, and I don't know if they're.
You mean Trent? Trent Olsen?
There are 7 Olsen siblings in total.
His name is James. Well, there's James, because Elizabeth James is the name of MK&A's fashion company.
Okay.
So Elizabeth James, Mary Kate, and Ashley are the 4. If there are more than those 4.
There's Trent, for sure.
Yeah, there's Trent. No one ever talks about Trent.
Trent is the eldest Olsen.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's one more who we don't speak of.
Yeah.
But there's 7 total. Yeah. They roll deep in the Olsen group. When you see the Olsens roll up.
Families together, like maybe if it's like a huge family batch, because once you get Joaquin in there, like I'm sure he's doing some weird fighting shit. It's just like a whole family battle. Ghost flies in. I don't know.
Look, as soon as the thing is, when you we talked about this in a previous episode. There's this concept of the Skeleton King, which is when someone is like leveled up beyond belief and they're just unbeatable. That's Trent Olsen. If you bring Trent Olsen to the fight, anyone else loses the fight.
Yeah.
Period. Hard stop.
I think if we're sticking with Mary Kate and Ashley, I give them the edge. I think for the thing is they're twins, so they obviously have a psychic link to one another. In some ways, they remind me of the sisters from The Shining, that are standing in the hallways and things like that. I just feel like there's this effort of communication and connection that can't be beat. And there's just, as Justin said, they've seen some shit. And like I said, if they were to join hands and start speaking like demonic tongues, and you watch their eyes turn to completely black, and they sort of like merge into one giant being, and they just start like their voice drops, and they start spouting out the Necronomicon and summon Cthulhu, I'd believe it. I believe that they could do that.
We are the Olsen twin.
Yeah, right. I wish my voice mod was working, because I would do a fun voice to do that, and it would be really fun. But alas, it's ruining my life. But yeah, I'm gonna say it's the Olsen twins.
Yeah, I'm Team Olsen twins always, forever.
Olsen twins for the win!
There you have it. There you have it. A wonderful throwdown and a wonderful guest, Jamie. This has been an absolute delight. Always fun to chat with you about anything and everything. Marvel comic book nerd stuff. Like, you're wonderful. You're well versed. You're an expert, and we appreciate you. So this is the part of the show where we want to make sure we get everything promoted for you, anything you got going on. If you have any recommendations for people, whether it be podcasts, movies, TV shows, comic books, plug your stuff and make any recommendations to anyone that's out there.
All right, here it goes. As I said before, Hollywood Already Did It is my WandaVision Through a Lens of Sitcoms podcast. Phase 0, I Remember the Time, Friday. Check us out on Twitch at noon Eastern. We'll be talking about the finale then. I assume I'm on it. Maybe I won't be, but I'm pretty sure I will, because it's my works podcast. And then recommendations. I know that a lot of people have been talking about House of M for WandaVision. And my biggest recommendation for you, if you want to read House of M, read Avengers Disassembled first. Both are important in terms of Wanda's journey and a little snapping a bit. And starting with House of M is like starting in an advanced textbook without getting any information. So I would recommend that. Also, if you like, the Vision and the Scarlet Witch combo is very informative, their backstory, but it's also very 80s. So it's like some of it's a little hard to get through because it's like super old. The Vision is an amazing comic book that stylistically WandaVision is very clearly modeled after, not story-wise, but in that regard. And it's an amazing comic. And I just started, here, I'll remove some stuff. The Scarlet Witch collection by James Robinson, and it's from a few years ago, and I have a feeling it's going to be my favorite comic book ever written once I get through
Wow.
it. It's real, like, just visually beautiful, and it's just all Wanda, and there's like some Wanda retcons that become important because of this. So those are my big recommendations, comic book wise. If you're looking to like further explore how they got to where they are in WandaVision.
I miss going to the library, because I would go to the library and just check out comic books nonstop, and I haven't done that in well over a year, and god damn it, I miss that. So you just watching you pull all that stuff out, I'm like, I gotta find a way to go back there and get some comics again. It was so much fun just exploring that shit.
Probably just drive there and just wear a mask.
Or just do what I do and go on Amazon and buy them. But
yeah, a lot of the stuff is what I liked about going to the library is I would just wander through the comic book section, and sometimes I know what I'm looking for. Sometimes I'm like, this looks interesting, I'll give it a try. And it was kind of fun just to be able to take a risk and see what it was all about. And yeah, I got caught up on a lot of cool stuff doing that. So awesome. Well, you heard it here from Jamie. Check out all that shit. Justin, what do you got to recommend?
I'm going to recommend the movie Minari with Steve Yeun. It is out finally on streaming for rental. It is beautiful movie. So well written, directed, acted, filmed, everything. It's just a gorgeous movie. I really loved it. It's a much slower pace than anything we've talked about today. There's not a lot of action in it, but a gorgeous story, and it deserves every award that it is going to get, and every award that it missed out on getting. So please check out Minari, and you can listen to the podcast. It's called The Business. The last episode, the most recent episode, they interviewed the writer, director, and one of the producers from Plan B, and it's really interesting to hear them talk about it. So please check that out.
Very
Doug, what do you
cool.
got?
I recommend there's a show on Amazon Prime called 000. I'd highly recommend that. It's about... It's a very character-driven story. It's essentially just a quick synopsis. There is 3 parties involved. There's the mafia in Italy. There is American smugglers, and there are Mexican drug suppliers. The mafia is ordering 5 tons of cocaine, and they are using American brokers to ship it, and their American brokers are getting it from Mexico, and it follows these 3 concurrent stories within these 3 parties. And you might be like, oh, it's another drug show. The drugs exist, but it's the characters that drive the story, and it's a really phenomenal show. And I think it's only 8 episodes on Amazon Prime. You should check it out. It's amazing. It's really, really good. I heard someone else recommend it. I'm like, I'll check it out. And immediately I was like, cool, I know what I'm doing this weekend. I'm finishing this show. So I highly recommend it. So awesome. Well, also, don't forget to check MindGap out on all social medias at MindGap Podcast. Also, like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We post all of our videos there, as well as highlights from the streams. And don't forget to check us out at twitch.tv/MindGap Podcast, where you can watch the podcast live and join in with all these other cool people and chat along with us and provide your comments. And then also check us out on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Central for the video game live stream, where you can come hang out and watch me fumble around and fuck up some games. Justin, you also exist digitally as well.
That's true. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm sorry, I'm just watching what's happening in the chat right now, and it's very distracting because Slotty and Jared are having a battle of wills, and it's amazing. Jared keeps bringing up Superman Returns, and Slotty keeps banning him, and that deletes everything Jared has posted. It's amazing. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Justin_Michael, spelled Mikel. It's the fun way of spelling it. And while you're in the On That Realm, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Verbal, Podbean, all the places. Subscribe to us, like, rate, review. The big one is sharing. Just copy the link, share it out to your social network, and let everyone know, hey, these idiots are fun. You should probably listen to them too, because then we can talk about how stupid they are. And then 2east8th.com/mindgap and 2east8th. Just keep an eye on all of our social medias, because we've got projects coming out and other things and blogs and good stuff. We're releasing videos with our blogs now too, so you can see this mug talk to you about camera shots. Yeah, you're welcome.
Now we're talking. Once again, Jamie, such a pleasure having you. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us and be our expert.
Anytime.
Awesome. We'll definitely be bringing you back soon. So to that, I say, Justin, thank you.
Douglas, thank you.
Twitch, thank you.
And listeners, thank you. I got distracted by the stupid chat again. These guys are just nonstop. Listeners, thank you.
And you all have a dandy fucking week.
MindGap Podcast.